Good morning. This is the Society News and the County Press for Friday the 17th of May. My name is Pauline.
And my name's Mike. We start with Tuesday the 21st of May. Laura will be at Our Place Community Drop in session at the West Wight Community Centre in Mower Place, Freshwater. Come along to say hello between 10 a.m. and 12 noon and enjoy a free cup of tea or coffee. The swimming group will not be meeting this week as the waterside pool is unavailable. Our apologies for the lateness in this cancellation. We've only just been informed. Wednesday the 22nd of May. We will be holding a low vision day here at Millbrook House between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. We will be joined by Professional Vision Services, the Macular Society and Dolphin Speech Software. We will also have a display of clocks and watches from Cobalt and technology and aids available from the Society. Refreshments and parking will be available. The weekly coffee morning will also be held at Millbrook House from 10:30 a.m. until 12 noon. Thursday, the 23rd of May. The Thursday social group are meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. We can knit or just have a chat. Then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics.
Any other news? The Fellowship for the Visually Impaired meet at Bethany Evangelical Church, Union Street, Newport, on Saturday the 25th of May at 3 p.m. The speaker this month will be Mr. Terry Blunden. Activities include hymns, quiz, story reading, short Christian message, followed by tea. Please note, a collection is taken from which donations are made to the Torch Trust for the Blind. Hymn books and scripture in large print and braille are available. Further details from Mrs. Jackie Moore, telephone 520797. Sight for Wight is delighted to announce that the position of volunteer manager has been filled by our internal candidate, Susan Early. Susan has been our volunteer administration assistant for nearly a year and will be in post from Tuesday the 14th of May.
This week's In Touch. Why do sighted people want to tell blind people's stories? A sighted author on writing a book about a woman regaining sight, a project to tell the stories of blind women around the world, and one listener's view on accepting her blindness. The presenter is Lee Cumutat, the producer Tom Walker.
And now for the County Press, with the headline, Walk the Wight Extraordinaire. The writer is Laurie Little. Support for Sunday's Walk the Wight has been hailed as extraordinary by organisers Mountbatten. Around 1,100 walkers signed up on the day, taking the overall total participants to more than 8,000 for the charity's flagship fundraiser. Mountbatten Chief Executive Nigel Hartley, who presented medals at the Needles, said it was an incredible day. There were so many people and there was a very special atmosphere across all the walks. The support was extraordinary and the stories of courage and determination were both humbling and inspirational. On behalf of all of us at Mountbatten, thank you to everyone for being part of a very special day. Among those taking part was Steve Wright, who has terminal cancer and is currently being supported by Mountbatten. Joined by family and friends, Steve stepped out of his wheelchair to walk across the flat walk finish line to a huge round of applause. Others took part in memory of loved ones, while fancy dress was a prominent theme, with sunflowers and superheroes popular with walkers. The total raise will be announced later in the year when all the sponsorship money has been sent to Mountbatten. Send in your sponsorship money to Mountbatten and you can find the details online.
Fears sea eagles will snatch lambs. Sea eagles could fly off with young lambs and seriously jeopardise farming businesses, and Isle of Wight Farm has warned. Claudia and Andrew Hodgson of Cheverton Farm spoke out after a white-tailed sea eagle was pictured carrying off a lamb on the Isle of Mull. But conservationists said the conditions in Scotland were not comparable to the Isle of Wight. Natural England recently announced 60 of the birds would be released over a 5-year period on the Isle of Wight this summer. Mr. and Mrs. Hodgson said they have already lost more than 200 newborn lambs to ravens and rooks this year, as the birds peck out their eyes and inflict fatal wounds. The Hodgsons said, "The sea eagles pose an even greater threat, and with an 8-foot wingspan they are clearly more than able to take young lambs. We are not against a sensible level of natural balance of predators/prey, but to jeopardise our farming business is unsustainable and, quite frankly, heartbreaking. Our main concern is that Scottish farmers report losing significant numbers of live lambs. This seems to be of little importance in terms of their release on the island. We will no longer be able to lamb outside in the fields, which is by far the healthiest method for the sheep." Tim Mackrell, ornithologist with Roy Dennis Wildlife Foundation, said there was no evidence the eagle in the photo had killed the lamb. It was more likely the lamb was already dead and its carcass picked up. He said, "In the northwest of Scotland, natural food for the birds is scarce, making them more likely to look for carrion. On the south coast of England, food is more readily available, particularly water birds and fish. White-tailed eagles have been successfully recolonised in the Netherlands and reintroduced in Ireland, which have similar conditions to the south coast of England. There has been no eagle predation on lambs there." He said they recognise the concerns of farmers and would like them to be involved in the next stage of the project.
Plans lodged for Burger King drive-through. It's an article by Megan Baines. Plans for the island's first Burger King have moved a step closer. A planning application for a restaurant and drive-through in Newport has been lodged with the Isle of Wight Council. Fans of the fast food chain were left confused after the company confirmed the plans to open a restaurant on the island, only to U-turn less than a day later. The plans were leaked to the county press in February. Now a planning application has been submitted seeking approval to open a Burger King and 24-hour gym at the Coppins Bridge complex. The site currently has a Cineworld, Pizza Hut and KFC. Shops Maplin and Office Outlet have closed within the last year. Plans for a drive-through restaurant are also included, which would sit next to the KFC drive-through. There were mixed reactions to the news online. One county press reader said, "Great, I love a Burger King. Was just thinking I need to lose weight, so could use the gym, then go to the Burger King afterwards." Another said, "They'd better make some more parking around that area then. The parking and KFC drive-through is hectic and full enough as it stands now, let alone with another food business there too." Burger King would be open from 6 a.m. until midnight. More than 56 jobs could be created by the plans submitted by Otium Properties. Alterations to parking and access are likely. A refuse and recycling area will be built on site but fenced off from the general public. The application stated The proposal will make effective and efficient use of vacant retail floor space and in turn will contribute to supporting and enhancing the vitality and viability of Newport Town Centre. The application claimed the new units would help make the town centre a more attractive shopping and leisure destination and encourage other retailers, it stated. Attracting the Gym Group and Burger King demonstrates investor confidence in the potential growth for Newport, which will act as a catalyst for further regeneration and investment. The remaining units on the Coppins Bridge site could be occupied by other leisure operators, it stated.
You meet so many nice people along the way. There were sunflowers galore, some interesting choices of attire, and plenty of fancy dress, but one group in particular stood out, with their custom Bergen bags on their backs. 10 soldiers from the 216 Parachute Signal Squadron walked the full route with their backpacks, as they do for every training exercise. They heard about Walk the Wight from Corporal Dave Page, who is from the island. The group was on a military history and cultural visit to the Isle of Wight over the weekend and couldn't resist slotting in a mere 26.5 miles. They walked at, for them, a leisurely pace, getting to the finish line in exactly 9 hours. Many walkers have been participating in Mountbatten's big event for decades. Adam Anstey, aged 54, of Newport, walked with his friend Malk Sheath, as the pair have done for about 20 years now. Adam said, "It was the hardest one I've ever done because I'm getting older, but I'm sure I will still be up for next year. How could I not? My mum was at the hospice and they were brilliant." His sentiments were shared by Martin Pritchard, aged 69, of Newport, who said the walk takes him a bit longer each year. However, he completed it in a very respectable time of 8 hours 45 minutes. It was his 11th Walk the Wight. He said, "There is always a brilliant atmosphere, so I had a good time. You meet so many nice people along the way." Isabella Partington, aged 13, of Ryde, walked the second half with her dad Yasin and dog Archie. She said, "It was good fun and just showed how many people really care about the charity and are supportive of it. It was the perfect day for walking, sunny with a gentle breeze and temperatures at around 12 degrees all day. The event included the 26.5-mile main walk from Bembridge to the Needles, the option to walk the first or second half, an 8-mile flat walk from Sandown to Newport, and a 4-mile schools walk. As an all-inclusive event, even the dogs taking part were rewarded with their own medals at the finish line. The total raised for Walk the Wight will be announced later in the year, as soon as all the sponsorship money has been sent to Mountbatten.
Filmmaker meets idol De Niro. An Isle of Wight filmmaker met his hero at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York, the actor Robert De Niro. Aaron Blake Simmons, 31, wrote, produced, directed and co-starred in the short film His Hands, a silent psychological thriller which was picked for the festival. Tribeca was founded by De Niro. Aaron was thrilled to meet him. He said, "He was very respectful towards us, asking questions about our film and thanking us for being part of his festival. It was a great honour, a very pinch-yourself moment, and one I will never forget. It was such an incredible experience. Having a film that you've worked so hard on, being selected to screen at the prestigious festival, you think it doesn't get any better than that, but meeting your idol, it quite possibly does." Red carpets, interviews, sold-out screenings and great reviews welcomed Aaron to Tribeca. "It all went down very well and the American audience loved our film. I'm very excited about the future," said Aaron, who created the film with just £400. He was born on the island and went to Carisbrooke High School, performed in pantomimes at Medina Theatre and in plays at the Apollo, before moving to London to attend drama school, the Poor School. Since graduating in 2011, Aaron has enjoyed a successful career in film, TV and theatre.
Heroes of Walk the Wight. Walkers, marshals and medics were described as absolute heroes after they all stepped in to help two men who both suffered heart attacks during the Walk the Wight on Sunday. The men were flown by air ambulances off the island to mainland hospitals. One of the men suffered cardiac arrest at Brookdown and was treated by the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance before being flown to Southampton General. The other casualty suffered a cardiac arrest at Highdown at Totland, near the Needles Battery, and was attended by Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance before being flown to Bournemouth Hospital. One witness said, "I was on scene on top of Tennyson with my friend who is a nurse. He was giving him mouth to mouth. The fellow walkers who were CPR trained were awesome. It just so happened that a group of doctors came walking up the hill and they were absolute heroes too." Mountbatten thanked everyone who helped support the incidents. A spokesperson said, "We are grateful for the assistance of everyone involved, including event staff and members of the public. Emergency crews, including our event medical support team, Medi4, plus other walkers and volunteers provided medical assistance to the two men involved." Nigel Hartley, Mountbatten Chief Executive, said, "We are very grateful and thankful to those who helped. Once again, it demonstrated what an amazing community we have on the Isle of Wight."
Spice up your life on the Isle of Wight's famous bus. Stop right now. Do you want to be a guest in the iconic Spice Girls bus? One of the island's more quirkier tourist attractions, the Union Jack emblazoned double-decker Spice bus, has been converted into an Airbnb, and you'll really want to stay there. Up to 3 people will be able to stay in the bus, which was driven around London by Baby, Ginger, Posh, Scary and Sporty in the 1997 film Spice World. The bus will make its debut on June the 14th and 15th at Wembley Park in London, but don't worry, it'll soon be heading home to the Isle of Wight. Island Harbour Marina manager Darren Cook said the bus, which has been parked at the marina since 2014, will head back to the island sometime around the end of June. Darren said, "The idea really came from the owner of the harbour, Eamon O'Connor. We've had the bus for a few years now, but haven't really done anything with it. It was getting quite derelict inside." The bus is now in London, having undergone its transformation in Christchurch. When it returns to the island, it will be parked up at Island Harbour, where guests can rent it out and enjoy being a wannabe Spice Girl. Guests will have the run of both floors, although there are no toilet facilities on board. However, a separate bathroom will be located just a few steps away. A stay in the bus will set you back £99 a night. So what are you waiting for? In the words of the famous girl group, say you'll be there.
Repeat drink driver nabbed by kebab. A repeat drink driver has been jailed after being caught out by a takeaway kebab. Christopher Jason Barber was jailed for 26 weeks after magistrates finally lost patience with him on hearing it was his 5th drink-drive conviction. Barber, aged 52, of Landguard Road, Shanklin, appeared for sentencing at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday. Following a trial, he was found guilty of several driving offences dating back to November, including drink driving at more than 3 times the legal limit. Anne Smout, prosecuting, said 2 women spotted Barber leaving Dalian kebab shop in Cowes, getting into a Mitsubishi Pajero and reversing into the car behind. He then drove off, leaving the other car with a broken bumper. They took the registration number and phoned the police. Officers tracked Barber to his home address, which was then in Cowes, but he denied he had been out and said someone else must have taken his car. However, officers found the leftover kebab in the kitchen. Barber was fairly incoherent and gave a breath alcohol reading of 113. The legal limit is 35. Mrs. Smout said Barber had 5 previous convictions for drink driving, the latest in 2015. Henry Farley for Barber said his previous convictions did not make happy reading, but Barber was determined his appearance in court would be his last. Since the offences, he had moved to Shanklin and found work as a welder and was worried he would lose his home and job if he went to prison. Barber was still pleading his innocence as he was taken into the cells. Presiding Magistrate Gillian Dale said, "This is one of the worst cases we have ever seen. It is horrendous. There is no merit in giving you a community order, so we are sentencing you to 26 weeks in custody for the drink driving and 26 weeks for driving without a licence to run concurrently. You cannot keep just getting behind the wheel of a car." He was convicted of driving while disqualified, using a car without insurance or MOT, failing to stop after an accident, and driving while over the legal alcohol limit. He was banned from driving for 5 years.
5G protesters gather at council. Protesters gathered outside County Hall to demonstrate against the rollout of 5G. They said it would damage the environment and endanger human life. Protester Tanja Rebel said, "The insanity must stop, and it should start with the Isle of Wight Council putting down its foot here and now. Beaming pulsed millimetre waves at people 24/7 without any chance of escape is a severe breach of human rights and constitutes technological trespass. 5G has no place on the island." The next demonstration will be held on Saturday, June the 1st at 1:30 p.m. in St James's Square, Newport. Tanja said, "Stop 5G, Isle of Wight will not go away until the madness has been stopped. It is a crime in the making."
A fond farewell to Popcorn Moses. One of the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary's OAP residents has died. Popcorn Moses died last week after suffering from acute liver failure for 6 months. Popcorn had lived at the sanctuary for many years and was well into his late 30s or possibly even older. He lived with a group of OAP donkeys at the Vauxhall Sanctuary. The sanctuary said Popcorn was a slightly nervous donkey, but he gradually became more confident with people as more and more visitors visited the site. He was renowned for having some of the poorest dentition of all donkeys, but this never once put him off his soft feed. Popcorn used his tongue and the top of his mouth to mulch his food, much to his enjoyment. Popcorn will go over the Rainbow Bridge to join his friends.
School plan branded unjust. Proposals that could see Yarmouth Primary School closed and relocated to Freshwater have gone to public consultation. Islanders have 4 weeks to have their say on the new plans. The Isle of Wight Council had originally intended to close All Saints C of E Primary School in Freshwater due to falling student numbers in the West Wight area. However, following protests from parents, the council has a new plan to close All Saints on December the 31st and transfer pupils to Yarmouth. A year later, the Yarmouth site would close and all the children would be moved back to a newly redeveloped All Saints. Not everyone is happy with the plans, however. Yarmouth Mayor Steve Cowley, speaking in a personal capacity and not on behalf of the town council, said, "The threat to close Yarmouth Primary School is an injustice for a school rated good by Ofsted. It is at the heart of the community of Yarmouth." Cabinet Member for Education, Councillor Paul Brading, said extensive work funded by the government would be carried out at the new site. Councillor Brading said the Yarmouth School head teacher and governing body were receptive to exploring the idea. Consultation submissions can be made on the council website. A public meeting will be held at the Yarmouth Community Hall at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday to discuss the plans. Further meetings will be held at Yarmouth and at All Saints.
Fireworks night 3 times a week. Increasing the number of fireworks displays held at Blackgang Chine to 3 nights a week has upset some local residents. Knighton and Whitwell Parish Council has received a number of complaints, and the chairman is to write to Vectis Ventures about the concerns raised. Knighton resident Beverly Lakey told the county press, "For some years now, Blackgang Chine has held weekly firework displays on Wednesday evenings throughout the summer, increasing in 2018 to twice weekly due to a 175th birthday celebration. To the concern of myself and a number of other local residents, Blackgang plans on having these displays 3 times per week this summer. Though aware that many enjoy these evenings, I ask them to spare a thought for residents of Knighton, Whitwell and Chale, many of whom have to tolerate incredible noise, witnessing terrified pets, and having to close all windows and curtains in a vain attempt to minimise the noise. Sadly, we cannot do the same for the abundant wildlife in the area. Of course, this is a tourist destination and we all accept a little seasonal disruption. But seriously, to expect us to accept the increase from once weekly to 3 times? I personally dread the summer now. The windows of my home actually shake. I cannot enjoy my home or garden, and it breaks my heart to watch my dogs suffer such anxiety. Blackgang Chine said it was investing in bringing award-winning events to weekends by popular demand. A spokesperson said, "Last year we experimented with a few alterations to our events to get the summer party atmosphere right for local and island visitors alike. We received very positive feedback from thousands who attended during the summer months. We've received feedback from island residents not able to attend due to the typical Monday to Friday working week. Visitors' travel days are also changing, and we've seen an increase in long weekend stays on the island. We are trialling both our Big Night Out and Jungle Fever events to run on Fridays and Saturdays at Blackgang Chine and Robin Hill respectively." Vectis Ventures Managing Director Alexander DeBell said, "We are investing in bringing our award-winning events to more people who couldn't previously enjoy them."
Hotel added to plans for St George's Way, an article by Megan Baines. The Isle of Wight Council could be paid an extra £175,000 if it agrees to change some of the conditions for a new retail and leisure park in Newport. The plan to redevelop the Newport Football Club site and St George's Way has already been agreed by the council, paving the way for a McDonald's, Aldi and Wickes to be built there and creating 200 jobs. The new conditions would enable a hotel to be built on the site and allow more space for food retail. They would also enable the development to be built in 2 phases. The work by developer South Coast Leisure, SCL, would also kickstart the relocation of Newport Football Club to a new facility near the racecourse roundabout. However, South Coast Leisure, SCL, has now asked the council to agree to 4 new conditions, which it said would better meet market demand. These conditions include permission for a hotel and more space for food retail. They also include permission for SCL to sell the site on as separate lots to separate buyers. It was previously agreed that if the site was sold on, it would have to be to a single company. If agreed, the new conditions would see the value of the land increase from £350,000 to £525,000. SCL has already agreed to pay the higher price. The plans will be considered under delegated decision-making powers by Finance Cabinet member Councillor Stuart Hutchinson and will not go before the Cabinet or full Council. According to the Council, there is limited financial risk to agreeing to the new conditions. A report published on Monday stated, while the Council is able to refuse such a request, if it does so, it would simply frustrate SCL's regeneration proposals for their site, leading to either the consequent loss of the regeneration scheme or a less attractive one, with a loss of all the socio-economic benefits that would otherwise result.
Senior Minister visits businesses. Workers at MHI Vestas met with the Chief Secretary to the Treasury last Friday to tell her their priorities ahead of the government's forthcoming spending review. Islanders told Liz Truss government money should be spent on primary education and improving the ferry services. Ms Truss could not confirm whether the island would receive more money following the fair funding review. A Portsmouth University study previously revealed the island is disadvantaged by £6 million a year. The Council and Island MP Bob Seeley have lobbied for the government to take this into account and allocate the island more money. Ms Truss said, "It was quite an interesting discussion at MHI Vestas. There were plenty of people around the table saying they were willing to pay more tax for more public services. In terms of all public services, whether it's education funding or police funding, those types of issues are taken into account in the formula." Ms Truss was visiting the island as part of the national tour of meetings to understand the public's priorities ahead of the next budget. She welcomed a reduction in unemployment on the island, with statistics showing it has halved since 2010. MP Bob Seeley said 3% of contracts were 0 hours contracts. He said, "We do have a problem with seasonal tourism, but as places like Vestas show and GKN, there are an increasing number of high-quality jobs on the island, and if we develop our higher education sector and high-tech sector, that will improve." Ms Truss said the government would look to tackle the other issues on the island, including child poverty. More than 7,000 children live in poverty on the Isle of Wight, more than 30%. She said, "What we need to do now is help people get up the jobs ladder, get children a better education for their future prospects, and boost economic growth, because that is the biggest thing that will change, that is getting people's incomes up."
Warning of further deaths on busy road by Megan Baines. There will be further deaths on a busy high street unless a safe crossing is installed, the Isle of Wight coroner has warned. Caroline Summeray has written to the Isle of Wight Council's Highway Department to raise concerns after a pensioner was knocked down and killed in Wootton High Street last summer. She said further deaths would occur unless action was taken. Jacqueline Valvona, 90, of Homebray House, Wootton, died from multiple traumatic injuries 2 weeks after she was struck by a BMW car. She was trying to cross the road outside the Sloop Inn on August the 12th. Her death has led to a campaign for a new pedestrian crossing. Mrs. Summeray said, "There are a great many elderly people who visit the Sloop Inn due to the affordability of the roast meals there, and I have heard evidence there are more than 40 elderly people living in Homebray House, which is a short distance up the steep hill. Some pensioners may struggle to climb the 4-degree incline," she said. In the past 5 years, there have been 7 slight injury accidents recorded in the area. Mrs. Summery said a crossing would allow pedestrians to cross the road and catch the bus up the hill, which would help those with mobility issues. A senior police officer who gave evidence at Mrs. Valvona's inquest said he would support the installation of either a pelican or zebra crossing at that point. A spokesperson for Island Roads said, "We undertook a feasibility design and survey for a crossing following an instruction from the Isle of Wight Council. The survey considered vehicle and pedestrian movements in the locality and was undertaken at a time of the week, Sunday lunchtime, when data showed the Sloop Inn to be at its busiest. Island Roads will also be undertaking a further survey of vehicle and pedestrian movements during the busy summer period to enable the Council and Island Roads to determine whether there is a need for a crossing at this location."
Fiery fundraiser for accessible park. Efforts to build a playground with the first wheelchair accessible swing on the island have stepped up a gear. As parents prepare to literally walk over hot coals to raise the cash needed for the project. The Godshill Play Park project was launched 2 years ago by Nikki Collinson Phoenix, a parent, chiropractor and charity worker. In December, a team of volunteers stepped up to support the project's Fun for All mission statement to provide a fun, inclusive space for children to play together. Nikki hopes the play park will provide that space, meeting the needs of able-bodied children, those with sensory challenges and those with physical disabilities. The play park would feature the first wheelchair accessible swing on the Isle of Wight. Nikki and her team aim to raise £160,000 to make the project a reality, and have appealed for businesses interested in sponsoring pieces of play equipment to get in touch. They have also appealed for donations and have planned a number of fundraising events. The next major fundraiser will be the Godshill Play Park Firewalk, set to take place at the Griffin, Godshill, on June the 8th. Brave souls will take part in a sponsored walk, walking over hot coals to raise funds. There will also be a raffle with more than 50 prizes up for grabs, including Isle of Wight Festival tickets. Spaces are limited. To sign up, call Nikki on 07955 113 449 or email godshillplaypark@outlook.com.
Candidates throw their hats into the ring. A by-election for the Whippingham and Osborne ward will be held on June the 20th. The seat is now vacant after former Isle of Wight ward councillor Julia Baker-Smith resigned and moved to Manchester. At least 5 parties are contesting the seat. The Greens and Liberal Democrats both said they would be putting forward candidates, with more details to be announced. Ryde Town Councillor Karen Lucioni has been put forward by the Island Independents. Louisa Hillard, a former Isle of Wight councillor for the East Cowes ward, who lost her seat at the last election, has been chosen as the Labour Party candidate. A spokesperson for Island Labour said, "Louisa is a well-known figure and will be an excellent candidate." Stephen Hendry, who has served on East Cowes Town Council for the last 6 years, has been put forward by the Isle of Wight Conservative Party. He said, "I understand the key issues affecting the local area. Whippingham is also an important part of the ward, requiring a proactive councillor to work closely with the parish council."
Island GP project in line for MP award. Efforts to recruit and retain Island GPs have been nominated for an award. MP Bob Seeley has nominated the team from the Isle of Wight Clinical Commissioning Group, CCG and GP. One Wight Health for the Excellence in Primary Care category in the 2019 NHS Parliamentary Awards. It was awarded a £400,000 government grant to launch GP Retention Intensive Site Support, which is GPRISS, scheme to address the fact 20% of the island's GPs are set to retire in the next 5 years. It used the cash to provide training, coaching and career development to recruit and retain GPs. Mr. Seeley said, "As a result, the island has already seen 6 trainee GPs pursuing full-time roles, and 4 new GPs have applied to join local practices. This is a great achievement."
Picnic celebrates Polish heritage. Polish Heritage Day was celebrated on the Isle of Wight with a picnic for 250 people. The Polish Community School, ORP Bliskowica, organised the event as part of a nationwide initiative. The group is continuing to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Polish independence. The celebrations took place at Priory School in Whippingham. One of the organisers, Sylvia Rogala, said, "Our first Heritage Day on the Isle of Wight was an important occasion for the local community to celebrate Polish culture and tradition. We had a great atmosphere. Among the special guests were war veterans Commander Walter Jaros and Consul Radoslaw Gromski. There was Polish cuisine and a barbecue, music, folk dancing, pottery classes and activities for children."
Waverley steamer is pulled from service. The popular Waverley paddle steamer will not run this year. An appeal has been launched to save the Waverley, a regular and popular visitor to the island, which has been withdrawn from service for the first time in 45 years due to problems with its boilers. Waverley Excursions General Manager Paul Semple said, "The whole Waverley team is deeply disappointed. We are unable to repair the ship's boilers and operate this season despite every effort being made to overcome the challenges presented. I know this news will be disappointing for the tens of thousands of passengers who would have sailed with us this year. The appeal is asking for donations to save the ship. Donations can be made online at www.waverleyexcursions.co.uk or by texting STEAM20 to 70085 to donate £20. And we've just been told that we've got to finish the article and say goodbye. So it's goodbye from Mike.
And goodbye from Pauline.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good morning, everyone. This is the County Press for May, and the first letter is headed "Target the Worst Offenders" from Phil Cave of Carisbrook. Following your report of the Extinction Rebellion demo, County Press, May the 14th, in Newport last Saturday, can I offer a view? I agree with the premise overall, but they are barking up the wrong tree. The UK over the last few years has a good record on climate change, so why are the protesters here at all? Surely it would be much better and apt for them to protest in China or India. If they can't get there, at least protest outside the Chinese or Indian embassies in London. Both of these two countries are still building coal-burning power stations.
And this is from Frankie Goodall in Newport, left out by online survey. So the Isle of Wight NHS Trust wants an opinion from wheelchair users, but responses must be submitted online. I use a powered wheelchair and would love to respond to their survey, but since having a stroke 4 years ago, I find it almost impossible because I can no longer scan. During the 1980s, I used my computer for publishing, so I have experience and do miss using my computer. There are many people who have never properly learnt to use a computer. Will they never learn that people like us are completely disenfranchised by their existence on making access to such a survey solely by computer? I would have thought the NHS would have understood that late onset visual impairment could cause such problems. What is the impairment causing them not to understand? Clearly their survey will be impaired because the questionnaire will be flawed.
And now we have a piece of poetry titled Ode to Our National Health Service from Margaret Wight of Whippingham. St Mary's Hospital gets a lot of negative reports and comments, but I want to thank them all for their wonderful help and care. Staff in A&E, medical assessment and the stroke ward were so friendly and helpful under difficult circumstances. From behind the blue curtain, this is an extract from Margaret's poem. From behind the blue curtain, in a hospital bed, waiting and listening to all that is said, the crashes and bangs, the squeaks of the trolleys, the staff up and down in the corridors hurry, from the ambulance crew who did a lot, from the cleaner to the consultants at the top, to Maggie who saw me out the door. You all work so hard. Who could ask for more? The biggest thank you for all your care. Thank goodness you are all there.
From Tim Bristow in Ryde. Are sea eagles safe? The sea eagle is a fantastically beautiful bird of prey with a wingspan up to 8 feet and a beak capable of causing serious damage. Recently approved plans by Natural England, with apparently no reference to the people who actually live here, have allowed the breeding of sea eagles on the Isle of Wight. Phil Stocker, Chief Executive of the National Sheep Association, said in the national press, that was in the Daily Telegraph on the 10th of May and other outlets, that the recent pictures by Douglas Curry from the Isle of Man showing a sea eagle carrying off a newly born lamb to its nest to be eaten were proof that recently approved plans to home 30 breeding pairs of sea eagles on the Isle of Wight were unsuitable. He said, "It's all about ecotourism, attracting more people to the island. But what happens if it all goes wrong? You'll have these giant predators all over the south of England, and it'll be too late to do anything about it. This is a highly urbanised setting. They simply shouldn't be here. I would think there is also a danger of people's pet cats and dogs, and so on. It really is ridiculous. The first sea eagles will be introduced to the island this summer. Yes, this summer. Can I just ask the question why? And what will it do to our red squirrel population? And should we and all our visitors keep our dogs off the vast open beaches of the island this summer?"
And some ideas to slow down climate change from Peter Gregory of Ryde. Climate change is a big issue, and no doubt will be bigger for our children and their children. So big, issues require a big solution, and I'd like to suggest a few I think might really help our planet. Number one, virtually every roof on every house in the country, or indeed in the world, should have solar panels on as technology evolves, charging accumulators in every house to store that free energy. I appreciate this will be very expensive. Two, virtually every roof on every house in the country, or indeed the world, should have solar heating to make hot water from the light, be it sun or just daylight. Three, massive investments should be made to develop a public transport system that is free or at least cheap enough for people to use, plentiful and regular so people can get very close to where they need to go, which it probably would be if the users of the public transport system left their cars at home. and covers just about every location you need. This includes a decent bus service and a decent train service. I'm not an eco-warrior or even a climate change protester, but probably should be. But I am genuinely concerned governments all over the world are not taking the issue of climate change seriously enough. My own feeling is big business, be it the power generating companies, the oil industry, and especially capitalism, are working both diligently, skillfully and subversively to ensure the current way of the world doesn't change, so profitability and the needs of shareholders are satisfied. The bottom line is we have to do something to change the appalling way the human race is messing things up. My ideas won't solve all the problems, but they will surely help.
Poo on Parade from Veronica Cowan Gernard. I love sitting on the parading cows, but I've noticed how much dog excrement there regularly is on the pavement. This morning I felt compelled to pick up a particularly large amount because visitors from a cruise ship were alighting from several coaches, and I couldn't bear the thought of them stepping in these deposits and having to get back on the ship with their colourful holiday shoes covered in it. Could not the Harbour Commission fund a dog warden in the summer who could perhaps double up as a clean-up person where deterrence has failed? Alternatively, I would happily pay a levy on my council tax for such a service, because the town needs visitors to keep it vibrant in the summer.
We now have Wight memories, beginning with Changing the Face of the Island News by Brian Greening. I realise when I write on this subject that I am treading on dangerous ground. I have no journalistic experience, and I have to say I admire those who do, week after week, hit their deadlines and bring to us reports of events throughout the island. However, it is one job that has changed dramatically with the progress of technology. 150 years ago, editors had to rely on news sent from overseas before they could comment on situations in war zones. In around 1870, every village on the Isle of Wight had a representative whose job it was to relate news back to a central location, and often this was achieved by getting on a bicycle and delivering it personally. With the introduction of the telephone, the situation improved, and later the taking of notes via shorthand was another distinct advantage. In the 1950s, I recall standing outside the county press offices in the High Street to await the posting in their window of the result of the Newport football team's games in days when they had long runs in the FA Cup. Today, if an earthquake takes place in Japan, we will learn about it within the hour, if not sooner. In the 1800s at Newport, there were several attempts made by small groups to bring out news sheets, and one of these was named the Carisbrook, published by Mrs. Fenton, that had a life of just 18 months. Then came a grander publication when 4 men produced a paper called The Island Quarterly that had more than 80 pages. The men behind this magazine included Measures S. Wheeler, Thomas Lee, R. H. Pittis and Dr. Dabbs. Both newspapers were printed by Brannan and Son. It was not until 1884 that these men, with the addition of a Mr. Fadd, came together as a result of being the birth in November of that year of the county press itself. Thomas Lee became the first editor of the county press. He had come to the island in 1868 to become a local reporter for the Hampshire Independent.
It was his knowledge and experience in the newspaper industry that contributed to him becoming the first editor of the county press. The newspaper's early location was where the Santander Bank is today, before moving to their High Street location. Thomas Lee remained editor until 1908, when his failing health following the death of his wife compelled him to relinquish his job, but he continued for many years to write articles under the pen name of Stylus. I am fortunate to have a copy of the County Press Jubilee Supplement that was brought out in 1934 and it is interesting to note the various stages of production that the newspaper went through. One detail amazed me when I read that in around 1904 there was installed something called a rotary press, that instead of printing on single sheets of paper, took its supply from a large reel of newsprint that was 2 pages wide and contained a supply that was nearly 4 miles in length. Here I was fortunate to be able to pick the brains of my good friend Bill Shepherd, who in the late 1930s worked on Newport's Quay for Crouchers. He told me these large rolls of paper were brought from Southampton and stored in what was known as the Green Store on the quay. The county press would inform them when they needed additional rolls, usually 3 or 4 at a time, and it was Bill and his workmates' job to deliver and unload them, not without considerable care, for their estimated weight was said to be around 500 weight, to the Pyle Street premises. I have seen many changes in my lifetime with the publication of our local newspaper. There are those like me who were brought up with the newspaper being considerably larger in length and breadth. We knew that the hatches, matches and dispatches would be on the front page, and all the court cases together on another page.
And now we have My View, Matthew Chatfield, and it's headed Island Roads Are Special and We Like That. I don't have many highly developed skills, but resisting the draw of faraway places is probably one of the most useful. At the age when most young people were knotting their belongings into red spotted hankies and setting off to London to seek their fortunes, I thought it appropriate to find work on an isolated big pig farm in Sussex. Later in life, I marvelled at my work colleagues saving up their money to go on exotic holidays. Was it really worth working a whole year to spend 48 hours on a plane and 3 nights in the Maldives? I didn't think so, and I still don't. Nonetheless, I do occasionally go to the mainland. When I do, it tends to be by public transport. I'm a big fan of the hovercraft, as surely as everyone must like that be by now, and in the event I need to go beyond Portsmouth, the train is my favoured option. So my opportunities to drive a car on the mainland are few. Last week it was one of those times, and I had the privilege of driving back from a meeting at Reigate round the M25 on a Friday night, just before Maybank holiday weekend. This went exactly as you'd expect. My ridiculously slow journey provoked first a negative and then a very positive reaction in me. Initially, I would admit to getting a bit frustrated, sitting mile upon mile of crawling traffic. Angry drivers, noxious fumes, huge lorries and screaming sirens. Seeing one's booked ferry time slide by, and then the next one, is a depressing thing when you haven't even seen signs for Guildford. And yet, as the traffic thinned out and I emerged from the Hindhead Tunnel into the welcoming light of Hampshire, another more optimistic thought hit me. This is normal on the mainland, the normal. People who live and work here actually endure this all the time. They sit in their expensive cars, watching the back end of somebody else's even more expensive car, crawling along in front of them as they winkle their way along the bypasses, the dual carriageways, and the motorways. But on the island we whinge like irate toddlers when we have to wait 20 minutes to drive down Staplers. So you know what? Every time we go to the mainland and get stuck in traffic, we should be laughing fit to burst. The worse it gets, the better we've got it. And the next time a holidaymaker remarks on how quiet island roads are, instead of going beetroot with rage, I'm going to gracefully say, "Okay, chum, you're right. Our roads are quieter than yours. And you know why? Because we have nicer things to do. We don't spend 3 hours per day in the car and think it's normal. Sure, we've got a nice house in Surbiton, worth more than the whole of Chale, but is it really worth it?"
And from Megan Baines, don't try to excuse racism as banter. At what point does banter stop being funny? Last week, the County Press published a story written by one of my reporter colleagues about a gym where staff had made racist and offensive comments about its customers on a closed Facebook group. I recently joined a local gym for the first time in my life. The first time I walked in, I loitered outside the door for 5 minutes, building up the courage to go inside. It takes a lot for some people to enter that world, so it's not right for those in charge to make jokes about them when they're likely feeling vulnerable. But that's not what I found most shocking about the story. As soon as it was published online, the County Press was inundated with criticism. It was accused of being one-sided. It wasn't. The gym had been given 2 days to reply, and for having made up the story. It hadn't. The screenshots were there in black and white. But what made me feel queasy was the sheer number of people thinking it was okay, because the comments, racist comments, had been made in a private chat. And let's be absolutely clear, referring to a person of Middle Eastern descent as someone who looks like they are going to bomb the gaff is racist. Saying someone is a terrorist because of their skin colour is racist. It's not banter. One person said, people are allowed to discuss what they wish in a private message, especially where no one within that private discussion is offended. Another added, we've all been there. Why don't you show us your private chats, County Press? Honestly, you're welcome to my private chats, because aside from sending an excessive number of pictures of my dinner to my mum, there's nothing I wouldn't stand by in a public forum. When it comes to racism, you can't justify it under the umbrella of banter. That word seems to be used as a catch-all phrase for people, predominantly white men, to justify anything other people might find offensive. If you're offended, you're dismissed as a humourless snowflake. But as these men are never on the receiving end of discrimination, who are they to justify what is and isn't offensive? One person said, yes, the comments were racist, but the staff are lovely guys. If you think it's okay to joke about people of colour being terrorists, then forgive me for thinking you're probably a bigot. Who are you in private is who you really are. And if that person sends racist messages in private, you need to reevaluate your values, because it's as bad as sending them in public. Another said, this is part of an ongoing feud. Petty grievances aside, you have to separate that from messages which are clearly printed in black and white. I don't care who did what to who, it's beside the point. The story was about gym staff making racist and derogatory messages about people who trusted them. The island sometimes gets stick for being stuck in the past and even narrow-minded. I lost track of the number of times I was given a funny look when I told people I was moving here. Normally I'd defend it. The Isle of Wight is full of reasonable, forward-thinking people. But this time, the views expressed on social media proved the critics right.
Now we have a column here headed Busting the Myths of the Scam. There are many assumptions and myths surrounding scammers. Here are a few of the more common ones. Fraudsters want to get off the phone quickly in case they get caught. This is not the case. They will actually want to keep you on the phone for as long as possible, so if a bank has been alerted to any unusual activity, they are unable to contact you as you are already on the phone. They will also want to keep you talking to find out as much as they can about you. They usually call from overseas. Don't assume that a caller with an English accent will always be a genuine or one with a foreign accent will be a scammer. Banks will always refund stolen money. If you have transferred money to a bank account, the bank is currently under no obligation to refund you the money However, changes are currently being made by the banks to offer additional protection to customers and will be in place later this year. To stay safe, always remember, never give out bank or personal details over the telephone. Never feel pressured to make a decision over the telephone. Consider a call blocking device or telephone, or check if your call provider can do this free of charge. Reporting a scam. For advice on scams, call Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline 0345 404 0506. To report a scam, call Action Fraud, and their number is 0300 123 2040.
And now for What's On. A Robert Maxwell biography talk. Following the London launch of her new book, My Unique Friendship with Robert Maxwell, The Truth at Last, Eleanor Berry will be appearing at the Apollo Theatre in Newport. The event takes place on Thursday, June the 6th, from 7 p.m. Eleanor first met Robert, owner of the Mirror newspaper group, as a teenager. He became a surrogate father. Indeed, she attributes him to saving her life when he charged into an operating theatre where she was receiving electroconvulsive therapy, scooped her up and carried her to his car. Eleanor's presentation will be followed by a champagne and canapé reception and an opportunity to meet her as she signs copies of her book. Tickets are available from the theatre box office, with proceeds going to the Isle of Wight Admiral Nurses Appeal.
Action on hearing loss will be at Bembridge Methodist Church between 10 a.m. and noon on Tuesday for their monthly drop-in and coffee morning. Come along for advice, batteries, cleaning and retubing of NHS hearing aids. No appointment is necessary. For more information, please call 529 533.
And at Northwood House in Cowes, we're getting together again, the 2019 Cowes Big Lunch. That's on Sunday the 2nd of June, and an invitation to join our picnic in the park and free community celebration, with great live music from the Bob Howarth Big Band, Company B and more. There'll be a fun dog show, stalls, bar and barbecue, children's entertainment and enter our baking competition. And this is supporting local charities on the day. And you're invited to bring family, friends, neighbours and your dog.
The Silver Surfers Cafe will be open between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. on Wednesday, May the 22nd in the Seagrove Pavilion in Seaview, where there will be people on hand to assist with computer, tablet, smartphone problems, as well as offering refreshments, all for £2 per session. The sessions will then continue fortnightly until the summer break. For more information, contact Nigel Golding on 566 357 or go to the website at www.seagrovepaviliontrust.org.uk or just turn up on the day.
And the Royal Shakespeare Company, the countdown has begun, and this is Ronald Dahl's musical Matilda, and this is the book by Dennis Kelly, music and lyrics Tim Minchin, and this will take place at the Mayflower Theatre on Tuesday the 11th of June through till Saturday the 6th of July. And tickets can be ordered from themayflower.org.uk or by phoning 02380 711 811.
And notice here for Comedy at the Key, arranged by the Key Arts Centre, Saturday the 22nd of June. The lineup is Ryan Mould, Matt Bragg, Dan Mayo, Mark Rowe and Harvey Hawkins, and the programme is hosted by Bobbin Dixon, and the tickets are £10 and £15 with food, and the event starts at 8 p.m.
During Dementia Action Week, Cowes Library will hold a tea and coffee morning in conjunction with the Cowes Alzheimer's Cafe, and this is next Friday, May the 24th, between 10 a.m. and noon. Come along for a chat, play cards or board games, or try colouring for adults. All games and colouring materials will be provided. Cakes and refreshments provided by the supporters of Cowes Library.
And the Apollo Theatre Pyle Street presents the Apollo Players in a programme called Natural Causes, a comedy by Eric Chappell, Friday the 17th to Saturday the 25th of May at 7:30 p.m.
The Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend from the 29th of May to the 2nd of June, and this is Echoes of Ellington, and there will be Ian Shaw sax appeal, Tim Kilfias trio, Gabriel Latchin trio, and a whole host of other jazz stars, and the tickets are on sale at the Isle of Wight County Press now. And you can also get them on isleofwightjazzweekend.co.uk.
And an acclaimed Isle of Wight pianist, Sally, to perform home turf concerts. Bonchurch pianist Sally Halsey will return to the island to perform with local musicians. A night of piano music will be held at Keys Art next Friday, making great use of the Newspaper Arts Centre's old Bechstein piano. The variety event has been organised by Jim Thorne of the Isle of Wight Jazz Festival and will feature music of all genres. Tickets for the event, which starts at 8 p.m, are available at the door or in advance at www.keyarts.org/event/Bechstein fundraiser gig. During her visit to the Isle of Wight, Sally has invited cellist Joshua Lynch to join her in a recital at St Boniface Parish Church, Bonchurch, on Thursday the 7th at 7:30 p.m. It will be the inaugural concert on St Boniface's newly acquired boudoir grand piano, and the programme will include works by Mozart, Mendelssohn, Beethoven and Saint-Saëns. Sally was brought up in Bonchurch and attended Medina High School, Peter Simmons College and Trinity Laban Conservatoire of Music and Dance. She is in demand as a pianist, accompanist, coach and teacher. Tickets for the Bonchurch concert are available at the door or in advance by calling 852-2201. Proceeds will go towards renovating the church's stained glass windows.
And now some further items of news. Teen saved from mud. A 15-year-old boy was rescued from the River Medina after becoming stuck waist deep in mud. Coast Guards, fire crews and paramedics were called to the scene near the Medina Valley Centre, Dodnor, last Friday night. The teenager was checked over at the scene and taken home by ambulance. A fire service spokesman said he was released using an inflatable path and water rescue equipment.
And worldwide toes are tapping away and hands are clapping to the feet of Rhythm of the Dance, Saturday 22nd of June at 2:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m, Sunday 23rd of June at 7:30 p.m. Tickets £23.50. Also Pop Divas. Get ready for the best songs from all your favourite female stars in one fabulous, fun-packed show. The tickets are available at £16 and the event is on Friday 31st of May at 4 p.m.
Girl stuck at play park. A child was freed from playground equipment after being stuck. Passers-by worked to rescue the 9-year-old at the Stephen Jenkins Rainbow Playground last Saturday after her leg became trapped between two metal bars on the equipment. Sandown Town Council, responsible for the playground, said the equipment was new and had only recently passed an inspection. The child suffered bruising but no other injuries.
And Sing-Alonger Productions bring their newest show, the smash hit film musical that everyone can't stop singing, The Greatest Showman. Our live host will teach everyone a unique set of dance moves, show you how to use our interactive prop bags, and also get you to practice your cheers, your boos, and even a few wolf whistles. Fancy dress is strongly encouraged and full audience participation essential. Please note this is a screening of the movie, not a live stage show. Rated PG. Sunday the 30th of June at 2 p.m. Tickets £16/£12 junior.
And pollution fears. Coast Guard teams were called to investigate on Wednesday after reports of a large amount of pollution in the Solent. Several people reported a foam-like substance coming ashore between Fishbourne and Osborne. Ventnor and Bembridge Coast Guard rescue teams investigated and took samples, thought to be either algae or pollution.
And Auto Club break-in. Police have launched an investigation following a reported burglary at a private members' club. The break-in was reported at the Auto Club Union Street Ride on Wednesday last week. In a Facebook post to members, the club said intruders burgled and ransacked the interior, stealing many items. An Isle of Wight police spokesperson said they were investigating. Anyone with information can report it by calling 101 and quoting the reference 441 901 57944.
Welcome to the Isle of Wight. Derek Sandy will be singing Welcome to the Isle of Wight to visitors travelling to the island. He will perform on several Wight Link sailings following his success in Britain's Got Talent auditions. Catch Derek on the Portsmouth to Fishbourne route tomorrow, Saturday, next Friday and Saturday, and on June the 1st. He will be spreading his love of the island on the 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. sailings. Derek said, "I can't wait to share my love of the Isle of Wight. I'm really happy my music has raised the profile of the island and hope it will encourage more people to visit in the future." Wight Link Chief Executive Keith Greenfield said, "We were delighted the judges recognised Derek's star quality in Britain's Got Talent and know our customers will want to hear him performing."
And delays to Sandown Road works. A scheme to rebuild and resurface a Sandown Road has been delayed after contractors found that the ground was unstable. Fitzroy Street was due to be closed for 10 weeks from April the 8th as part of a project to reconstruct and resurface the carriageway. The work was designed to strengthen weak foundations which have historically caused road surfaces to deteriorate. An Island Road spokesman said, "Unfortunately, work on the scheme to rebuild and resurface Fitzroy Street has been delayed as we have encountered particularly unstable ground conditions. We are exploring a solution and hope to restart work as soon as this approach is finalised. We would like to apologise to residents for this delay and to thank them for their ongoing understanding. Pedestrian access will be maintained during the works."
Crash on car ferry. A red funnel passenger was taken to hospital following a lorry collision on the car deck. 2 cars and an HGV were involved in the incident at around 1:30 p.m. on Monday as they were driving off the Red Osprey in Southampton. Police and paramedics were called to the scene and the passenger, who was getting into her car at the time, was taken to Southampton General with minor injuries. A Red Funnel spokesperson said, The police are liaising directly with the driver of one of the vehicles, and we are assisting with their inquiry. Safety on board our ferries is of primary importance, and the safety of our customers is paramount.
And Island Amnesty members have called for the release of 9 leaders of the Chinese pro-democracy group, the Umbrella Movement. Among the activists were Professor Benny Tai Yuting, Professor Chang Kinman, and Reverend Q Yumi, convicted on ambiguous charges, including conspiracy to commit public nuisance. Amnesty said they had been convicted solely for their peaceful exercise of the right to freedom of expression and assembly.
Keep Fit on the radio. Keep Fit instructor Alice Blue is hosting an on-air class at Vectis Radio on Wednesday afternoons. Alice, who runs Spring Chicks, includes a few simple exercises, then the chance to try them out to Vectis Radio music. Alice said, "We have come up with a formula that works for everyone of any age. It is important to get up out of the chair and move around as often as possible, so it is a great opportunity. So tune in at 104.6 FM.
And Esplanade Fire tackled. Fire took hold in the undergrowth on Shanklin Esplanade last Saturday evening. 5 crews from Ventnor and Sandown put out the blaze using 2 main jets, beaters and rakes. They were first alerted at 5:23 p.m. by a member of the public, and the blaze was extinguished by 7:30 p.m.
Untaxed car seized. Another vehicle has been taken off the roads and the driver was a repeat offender. The car was seized last Saturday, the latest in a recent crackdown, and police tweeted a photo with the following warning. Free advice: if you're going to draw attention to yourself, make sure you have insurance, tax and MOT. This chap had none. At Bartlett's Isle of Wight kindly took his car. At least it is nice weather for the walk home. Not the first car off this driver either.
And smoker sets off the alarm. Firefighters were called to Ryde property in the early hours after a fire alarm was triggered by someone smoking. They attended the address at St John's Road shortly before 2:30 a.m. last Thursday morning. The Ryde crew tweeted, "Mobilised to automatic fire alarm sounding at domestic property. Cause found to be a resident smoking in their room. The alarm has been silenced after a full inspection of the property."
And that's all we have time for today, so it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from Barry. We hope you have a very nice weekend.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, it's all about getting it right. From the first-time novelist writing about what it's like to be blind when he can see perfectly well, to the sighted journalist who focuses on blind women making a difference around the world. But we start with what you could say is the lifeblood of In Touch, the stories of our listeners. Recently, we heard from 3 people discussing coming to terms with blindness. What did that mean? And how would you know when you had? Well, amongst the response it provoked was this from listener Catherine McAteer. Catherine would like to have read this herself, but due to a very busy schedule, we weren't able to find a good time. It's read here by a member of the BBC drama team.
As a result of a rare eye condition, I lost my sight a couple of months before my 25th birthday. Over a few weeks, I went from being an independent young woman to being an utterly dependent one, having to rely on family and friends to help me with my shopping, cooking, reading, getting around, and much, much more. In the weeks and months that followed my sight loss, I felt devastated by the enormity of what I had lost, enraged that it had happened to me at all, and terrified by the darkness that surrounded me. I simply couldn't get my head around how I was going to live the rest of my life as a blind person. Back then, the only image I had of blindness was that of an elderly neighbour being slowly guided past our house every afternoon by his daughter, an image that gave me no hope at all. Thanks to the RNIB's Talking Book service, I was able to read a number of books written by people who had themselves lost their sight. In one of these books, I think it was written by David Scott Blackhall, I came across the following couple of sentences. I began by pretending I could cope with being blind. Then, one day, I woke up and realised I could. Those two short sentences not only gave me hope for the future, but also gave me a way to begin coping with my sight loss. So, like David, I pretended that I would of course be able to read and write Braille, that I would of course be able to get around with the use of a long cane, that I would of course be able to cook without sight. In short, that I would, of course, regain my independence. Then, one day, I woke up and realised I had. With the help of my local social services, I learned the necessary skills to look after myself again. This enabled me to return to college, where I first trained as a counsellor and later as a psychotherapist. And for the last 34 years, I've been working in a variety of therapeutic settings, and for the past 14, I've been the head of a multidisciplinary therapeutic service for young people. And have I accepted my blindness? Like the contributors to the programme, my answer is both yes and no. To a large extent, I have accepted it, so much so that I even forget that I'm blind for long periods at a time. But there are still days where I find myself wishing with all my heart that I could see for just 1 minute, so that I could easily find that earring I dropped on the floor, enjoy the smile on my husband's face, or take pleasure from seeing and not just smelling the beautiful flowers I was given. So, for me, acceptance is not a static state, as I can still be hijacked from time to time by my grief at what I no longer have, and once got such pleasure from.
The thoughts there of listener Catherine McAteer, read by Jessica Treen. And Catherine's ultimately highly successful academic career only goes to show again what can be achieved with the right attitude and the right opportunities. That's why we were very interested when we found a project which is seeking to highlight achievements by visually impaired women around the world who are turning their disability into an opportunity. Well, one of the team of journalists who are promoting their stories is Elena Del Estal, and I asked her what gave her the idea.
Me and my colleague Victor Martin Olazabal, we both live in India for several years, and while living there, we always thought every time we saw a blind or visually impaired person, we couldn't imagine how it could be to be blind there in India. So we always wanted to make some stories and work on some stories about blind people. And then we saw this grant from the European Journalism Centre. They were looking for stories that gives opportunity to women. We started researching, and then we found very interesting things that happen in several countries. So that's how we wanted to highlight different stories on how different blind women and visually impaired women deal in their daily life.
And Elena, something I hadn't realised really, why are women more likely to be blind in many parts of the world?
Women, they get less access to healthcare system than men. I mean, they have more chances to develop from an illness that can be treatable. They have more chances to become blind from it than boys in the same family. This is happening in many developing countries, but then it's true, we have to say that in some other developing countries, they are making more efforts to get access to get women in the health system. So this is something that is improving little by little.
Tell us about some of the stories that you're planning to cover.
We thought that the first opportunity, what can make real change in a blind girl or child, is to having access to the education. In India, we cover a school for blind girls. We witness and we cover how access to education, but not just formal education, but also having some vocational training that gives opportunities for having a job and for being independent. and economically independent as well. Then we went to Egypt, in Cairo, where we found orchestra integrated by blind women and visually impaired women, and they are professional musicians. Then we went to Ethiopia. In Ethiopia we met Nafisa Babu. She's a visually impaired woman, and she's working boosting inclusive education in a developing country. That means that in the school, disabled kids and non-disabled kids, they learn together.
So just give us a sense of what we're about to hear, of some of the recordings you've done.
We'll start with Nafisa Babu. She's from Ethiopia. And we can also listen some teachers in the school in India, and also the women who play instruments in Egypt.
I think that schools is like a microcosm of the society we want to create, right? Where people are appreciated for their abilities and also where everybody is seen to have a talent.
When a child became blind, most of the people thinks it is a curse of God, and they don't believe in medical treatment. Many of our girls became blind because of a small cause. Because of her careless parents, she became blind, and this was very bad.
I think your identity, and often like this whole thing about who are we as human beings, like having a visual impairment isn't all I am about. I am a person with aspirations, I'm a woman, I'm a mother now, I have interests.
When I'm playing music, really, I feel that how much I'm strong with my music, because I feel that I am in another world, I am living in another world.
Music means not only emotions, music means accuracy and creativity.
The people now, they are persuaded 100% that there is no word disability in the dictionary of life.
And I think that is what we need to focus on, is to focus on their abilities. And we have different abilities, everybody does. And if we see people like that, then we will really be able to improve the quality of education, the quality of life and of every person, right? Because it's you change the lens through which we see the world.
And as well as what we've just heard, I think there's an example where blind people's particular skills are being used in diagnosis of illness.
And then we went to Colombia, where there is a program in several health centers where visually impaired women, they help doctors to detect breast cancer. So as these women, they have a higher sensitivity in their sense of touch, they can detect a smaller tissue alterations than doctors. So that improves also the early detection of breast cancer. And this is a great opportunity, not just for visually impaired women, that they can do this job better than a sighted doctor, but this is also creating opportunities for women all over the world, because cancer is a global health problem.
And who do you think it's important hears these stories?
So I think it is really important that visually impaired people, they listen these stories to know that other people all over the world, they suffer same disability and they are doing things. But I think most of all, it's really important for people who has no disability to be aware that visually impaired people, they can have, it's not that different, our life.
That was Elena Delestel and her colleague Victor Olazabal, who sent us the audio. And we plan to feature some of these stories on In Touch over the next few months. Elena and Victor are dealing in facts, but blindness continues to inspire a steady stream of fiction. Now, we are a pretty tough audience, blind people, ever on the lookout for over-sentimentality, inaccuracy. So it's a brave or foolish writer who embarks on such a project. But Joe Heap is one such, and his novel, Rules of Seeing, takes an intriguing line. Now, plenty of authors have been attracted by the miracle cure. But in the case of Jo's heroine, Nova, blind from birth and quite happy as she is, thank you very much, she's none too sure she wants the treatment when it's offered. And when she does have the operation, finds the whole business of seeing confusing, sometimes frightening, and very hard work. This is Nova trying to explain this to her friend Kate.
Because it's like all of these conversations are going on simultaneously. Colour and depth, shape and texture, light and dark. And I'm trying to translate them all at once. Rule of seeing number 78. Watching someone while they talk is like hearing an echo. The image lags behind the words. Sighted people do not experience this. Wow. Kate is lost for words. But hey, I think it'll get easier. Nova chuckles, a habit of hers when she feels she's made someone uncomfortable. I'm coming up with all these rules in my head to help me remember it all. The rules of seeing.
That's an excerpt of the book narrated by Cariad Lloyd. Well, woven around this idea is a book that's also a thriller and a romance. I asked author Jo Heap what had been his perceptions about blindness before writing it.
I thought that blind people in general either had guide dogs or wanted guide dogs. I thought of them as existing in total darkness.
But why a story about getting sight back?
I read a newspaper article, I think it was in 2003, and it was written by a guy called Michael May. And he was a fascinating guy. He was blinded at the age of 3 in an accident. And at the age of 46, his doctor offered him the chance to have a new therapy using stem cell transplants to potentially regain some of his vision.
And I mean, we heard in the clip there why Nova was finding it so difficult to adjust, and your descriptions of that, which were very powerful. But how did you come up with them? Did you get those from Mike?
Yes, some of them came from Mike and his descriptions of seeing landscapes for the first time. I think the thing that I took from Mike early on in the novel is he describes speaking to someone for the first time since the operation. And one of the things that fascinated me about his account was that seeing was not a miracle transformation as much as the science might be miraculous. It was difficult for him, and if anything, it was confusing and detracted from his experience of the world as he already had it.
Because there aren't many other people you can compare it with, are there, really?
Not currently. I think the interesting thing is that throughout history there have been these moments where a new procedure has been developed, and suddenly lots of people who have grown to adulthood as blind people are suddenly given the chance to see. And the first of those would have been the invention of the cataract removal in the 1700s. It was only a few years before that operation was developed that John Locke, the philosopher, posited that a blind person, if given sight, wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a sphere and a cone. And lo and behold, just a few years later, his pure thought experiment was put to the test, and the case was called the Chiseldon boy. He was, I think, 14 or 15. He'd lived all his life with cataracts, and after the operation he was presented with a sphere and a cone, and he couldn't tell just by looking at them which was the sphere and which the cone. He had to feel them, and from that point forward he could understand that one was round and one was pointy at one end.
You do make it clear in the book, and it keeps cropping up, that you've gone to a lot of lengths in order not to be disparaging about the way blind people do things and give the range. Do you think in doing that you perhaps have fallen into the trap of creating almost Superwoman with Nova? Because without giving any of the plot away, she has to do various things because this is a thriller. So she fights off attacks, she's seems to be quite good at unarmed combat, basically.
What I started to realise as I was writing the book was that I was trying to write a character that avoided all of the stereotypes about blind people, all of the kind of TV and film tropes about them. And in doing so, I was running the risk of falling into another one, which is the inspiring blind person. And I appreciate that in trying to combat some of the common misconceptions about blind people that sighted people have, I've written a character who is very competent and can do all sorts of things quite easily. Now, I hope that as the book goes on, you see Nova's insecurities and the moments where she's unable to do things, and that rounds her out. But for me, it became trying to find a balance between those two extremes.
Were you aware that you were taking a risk? After all, if you write about all kinds of attributes that people have, but certainly disability, people are tend to leap on them and say, well, you've got this wrong, or that's a false implication.
Yeah, I was very aware of that, and I hoped that my research would shield me, but I think you have to be realistic and realise that as much as you research this kind of subject, it's so complicated and the range of experience is so wide, you'll never get everything right. And I was very lucky that some of the first readers of the book were the book club at the Royal National Institute for the Blind, and they were very encouraging. They had obviously had reservations about a book which dealt with blindness written by a sighted author, but they gave me lots of feedback. And one of the things that they pointed out to me, which hadn't come up in my research, was that there was a scene I had written where Kate invites Nova to touch her face in order to get a better sense of what she looks like. And this is a scene that I have seen in TV, in film, and I had just bought it, hook, line and sinker, and I'd put it in the book without researching whether or not it was actually true. And they came back to me and said, we're terribly sorry, but this is from an Al Pacino movie, and would it be all right if you changed it? And that for me was wonderful, because I would much rather change it before it was published than make that mistake in print.
Well, they're even there, you see. I know some people who do that. Not many, but I know so almost anything
exactly.
you do.
It's that's the thing, isn't it? That there's such a range of experience, and of course, some people, particularly with their close relatives or children, will do that. It certainly isn't the way that I wrote it, which is pure Hollywood.
Joe Heap and Rules of Seeing came out in paperback earlier this month. And that's it for tonight. We welcome your views and reactions. As always, you can call our dedicated phone line on 0161 836 1338 1338, where you can leave a message or a comment. Or you can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. For more information, visit our website, from where you can also download tonight's and previous editions of the programme. From me, Peter Wight, producer Lee Kumatet and the team, goodbye.
The list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding, hoarding, also details of skips, cranes and cherry pickers. We are unable to include end dates, as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. We start with the cows area, current scaffolds, 93 High Street cows, scaffolding up within hoarding, cameos, Bath Road cows, Ship and Castle Inn, Castle Street East cows, pending scaffolds, 13 Granville Road cows, current skips, 16 Yarborough Road East cows, current hoardings, 93 High Street cows, GKN Aerospace Clarence Road East cows, current scaffolds, 15 Cyprus Road, Newport, Lloyds Bank, St Thomas's Square, Newport, 14 Caesars Road, Newport, Thatchdown, Merston Lane, Merston, Gaming Centre, 9 St James's Street, Newport, pending skips, 6 Southview, Newport, building materials and hoarding, School Lane, Newport. In the Ryde area, current scaffolds, Marvin's, Cross Street, Ryde, Fowler's, 41, 43 Union Street, Ryde, Watson, Bull and Porter, 9 High Street, Ryde.
And continuing in Ryde, 77 High Street, Ryde, 13 George Street, Ryde, pending scaffolds, Hill Cottage, Main Road, Haven Street, Union Jack Hare, 11 Union Street, Ryde, 34 Castle Street, Ryde, Bendula, Union Street, Ryde, 35 to 36 High Street, Ryde, current skips, Carita, Stane Road, Seaview, 26 Arthur Street, Ryde, pending skips, 3 South Street, Ryde, building materials and hoarding, car park, Brooks Close, Bembridge. In the Sandown and Shanklin area, current scaffolds, Wilmer Dorkin and Vermaper Cottages, Church Street, Newchurch, the Ocean Hotel Townhouses, High Street, Sandown, the Toymaster, 103 High Street, Sandown, in Albion Road, the Co-op, Regent Street, Shanklin, Chubby's, 1 Regent Street, Shanklin, United Reformed Church, High Street, Shanklin, the former Lloyds Bank, High Street, Sandown. Pending scaffolds, Shanklin Theatre, Steep Hill Road, Shanklin. Current Cherry Pickers, Downsview, Sandown. Current skips, 14 Donington Drive, Shanklin. Coastal Mobility, 66 Regent Street, Shanklin. 8 Station Road, Sandown. Current hoardings, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. Junction of St Boniface Road and Arthur's Hill, Shanklin. Pending mobile crane, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown.
The Ventnor area, current scaffolds, the corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor, 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor. Current skips, 16 South Street, Ventnor. West Wight area, current scaffolds, St James's Church, St James Street, Yarmouth, Saxonbury, St James Street, Yarmouth. Vehicle crossing under construction, The Willows, 15 Cupressus Avenue, Winford, 10 Bering Road, Cowes, 7 Alfred Road, Lake, 32 Albert Road, Shanklin, 51 Worsley Road, Gurnard, 5 Lovett Way, Shanklin, 16 Mayfield Drive, Newport, 93 High Park Road, Ryde, 7 Westwood Road, Ryde, St Catherine's Church, Church Street, Ventnor, 18 Arctic Road, Cowes, 88 Wellington Road, Newport, and 41 The Rogers, Shanklin.